shortly.
Hi.
Oh, hi, Ben. So welcome to the Taxation Committee unusual Monday afternoon meeting. We're here for a work session for LD 221, the supplemental change package. Let's start by going around the room and introducing ourselves. And we will start with Senator Pouliot.
Hey, good afternoon, Senator Matt Pouliot, representing Senate District 15, the towns of Augusta, China, Oakland City.
And then let's go to Representative Sachs.
Everyone, Melanie Sachs, proudly representing House District 48, which is Freeport and part of Pownell.
And Representative Perry.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Joe Perry. I represent part of Bangor and part of Orono in the main house.
Excellent. Representative Bickford.
Good morning, Bruce Bickford. I represent House District 63, which is part of Auburn.
Representative Carmichael, you caught that.
Force a habit, isn't it?
It is.
I am Mickey Carmichael. I represent House District 137, which is 22 communities in Hancock, Washington, and Penobscot counties.
Representative Collings.
Good afternoon. I'm Representative Benjamin Collings, House District 42, part of the City of Portland.
And Representative Gramlich.
Good afternoon, Representative Terry and colleagues. I am Lori Gramlich, and I represent House District 13, which is the lovely seaside community of Old Orchard Beach.
Excellent. And Representative Kryzak.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Good afternoon. I'm Ted Kryzak. I represent District 20, Acton, Lebanon, and part of Shapley.
And I am Representative Mo Terry. I represent District 26, the west side of Gorham. I serve as House Chair, and with us today are Avery Page, our committee clerk, and Julie Jones, our committee analyst. And we can dive right in. Julie, if you're ready. You're on mute. And you're still on mute, Julie. Oops.
Sorry about that.
That's okay.
I thought I had clicked on it to unmute it, but I guess it didn't work. Maybe I didn't click strongly enough. This is the chart similar to one that you saw previously when you had a presentation from the commissioner with regard to the provisions in the change package to the current supplemental budget. I'm going to go over these briefly. The chart, I think, is how we would present your results to the Appropriations Committee. That's the reason for your gathering this afternoon, is to go through these and make recommendations to the Appropriations Committee with regard to these provisions. They have asked that for you to get that information to them by 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. So essentially you need to decide this afternoon how you want to respond on these items. There are not a lot of them. The first part of the chart here is provisions, and this is moving very fast, in the appropriations and allocation sections, but they relate to language sections. So I think it would make more sense to go over the language sections first, and then I can refer back to the appropriations and allocation sections. The allocations and appropriation section relate to tree growth and to revenue sharing. The other fiscal impacts are in the language sections or with regard to the language sections. The first part that relates to the Taxation Committee is Part F. In the original bill as proposed by the administration, Part F proposed to repeal the property tax relief fund and transfer money in that fund to general fund unappropriated surplus. the Budget Stabilization Fund and Capital Construction and Improvements Fund. This change package from the administration removes that provision in Part F. So they would leave the property tax relief fund now the way it is. So it would still exist under the recommendation of the change package. Instead, they have replaced Part F with a transfer to the highway fund. It's a transfer from the general fund to the highway fund. It's not really related to this committee, but that's what has taken the place of former Part F. I don't know if you want to stop for questions if people have them. I've also noticed in the attendee list that there are quite a few people here from Maine Revenue Services and DAFs and should be able to answer any of your questions.
Representative Kryzak, looks like you have a question. Do we want to do this one at a time?
It's about the form. I've got the forms that you sent us, Julie, but I can't find the one that you're showing, and I'd rather see it on my computer than on my phone. Did you send that with those other 3 forms?
I'm not sure when you say forms what you're referring to, but it's my understanding that I did send these out.
Okay. So I got the 130th first supplemental, and I got a supplemental fiscal year 22-23, and then an EITC draft.
Those are the materials that Maine Revenue Services sent
Okay.
earlier today that Avery forwarded to you. These charts, I think, went out last Friday.
Oh,
or maybe
okay.
over the weekend. I'm not sure exactly when.
All right, I see another one. I'll check that. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. So are we all comfortable? Do we want to do this one at a time, or do we want to do this the whole and then go back for questioning?
I'm fine with doing the whole thing.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Let's dive in then. And Avery, while we are reading through everything, perhaps we can invite the gang from MRS to come in. That way, when we do have questions, we can easily get answers quickly from everybody. Thank you. All right, Julie, head on in. Sorry.
Okay, the next part in the change package that relates to the taxation committee is Part H. Again, in the original bill, this Part H proposed to expand the service provider tax to digital streaming. The change package takes that out entirely and replaces Part H with new provisions. Under the new provisions in the change package, there's a variety, 4 different changes that are separate changes. The first one is they are providing a new income tax conformity date. You'll remember earlier in the session, the previous budget, can't remember now whether it was the supplemental or the biennial, but you previously updated conformity to 12/31/21. This change package proposes to change that date to April 30th, 21 to incorporate the changes that happened at the federal level since the beginning of the year. You'll see the fiscal impact of these various proposals in the column to the right here of the description. So for FY22, that would be a reduction in general fund revenue of about $17 million, and for FY23, a reduction of about $1 million. The second provision that is in Part H is a proposal to enact a sales tax exemption for menstrual products. This is, you have a bill that includes this provision in it already that has not, I think you're going to be, I think it's been tabled, so I think you're going to be taking that one up on Thursday. But there is a provision which would provide the sales tax exemption for menstrual products beginning October 1st, 2021. It would have a general fund revenue loss of $545,000 in FY22 and $740,000 in FY23. Should I just keep going?
Yep.
Yeah,
Please.
okay, just holler if anybody has a question or something. I'll just keep talking.
Okay.
The third provision that's in Part H is a temporary increase in the earned income tax credit. Under current law, the earned income tax credit in Maine is a percentage of the federal credit. Under current law, it's 25% for people without a qualifying child, and it's 12% for all others. This proposal in the change package would increase it to 20% of the federal credit for all others. And this is for FY21 only. After that, it would go back to the standard. The fourth provision that's in here relates to the property tax fairness credit. Currently, the property tax fairness credit is a formula based upon the relationship of the property tax to the individual's income. So it's to the extent that the property tax under current law exceeds 5% of a person's income, they can claim a property tax fairness credit up to a maximum of $1,200 for persons who are 65 or older, and $750 for persons who are younger than 65. This proposal in Part H proposes two changes. The first one, which is for 2021 only, ups the maximum amount of the credit. So instead of $750, it would go to $1,000 for people who are under 65. And instead of $1,200, it would go up to $1,500 for people who are 65 and over. After 2021, a different change is made. The current maximum amounts would still remain the $750 and $1,200. However, the calculation would be based upon the amount of property tax over 4% of a person's income. Sounds maybe like it's going down because it's 4% rather than 5%, but if you're talking about income, if your income is $20,000 at the current 5%, it would be taxes over $1,000. At 4%, it would be taxes over $800. So it's actually including more taxes that would be eligible for the credit for 22 and going forward after that time period. The fiscal impact on that in FY22 is a general fund revenue loss of 4.1 million, and in FY23, about 18.2 million.
If I can jump in there just for a second, Julie, I believe we got from either you, I think it was from you, a description of how that property tax fairness credit will work from the commissioner, sort of a little more detailed, an email that came in on the 21st. So
yes, it was a response to a question that that was asked when she presented to you last week.
Right.
Okay, Part G relates to revenue sharing. Current law, as amended by 29 is the biennial budget. As amended by the biennial budget, extended revenue sharing at 3.75% through FY23, with it going back to 5% in FY24. The change package proposes to instead, beginning in 22, increase the percentage of revenue sharing to 4.5%, and then in FY23 to 5%. This would be reduce general fund revenue because it would be going to the local government fund for revenue sharing by 29.7 million in FY22 and 51.5 million in FY23. I think I'm just going to continue in this for right now, and because we'll be finished with this in a minute or two, and then I can go back and show you the Part A provisions. Part J in the change package relates to the tree growth tax reimbursement. It removes old language, which is unrelated to tree growth. So there had been some language in Part J, but it's old language that's no longer needed. And they've replaced it with some changes to the calculation of reimbursement to municipalities for tree growth classified acres. It's intended to clarify some areas that were considered to be confusing. And it's anticipated that it will result in an impact of 2.9 million in FY22 and 3.2 million in FY23. And I think those should be in parentheses because I think that's additional money that's going to revenue sharing. Part P is a provision to, it again replaces language which is unrelated to the tax provisions and no longer needed. The new language would allow for promotional adjustments of tax examiner and tax examiner 2 positions within the Bureau of Revenue Services, and would be funded by a transfer from the salary plan, which is money set aside for these type of actions or reclassifications, or money that's needed with regard to position changes that occurred during a budget year. That is all of the language parts, and I'm going to scroll back up here. Scrolling's not working very efficiently here. To wrong direction. No, not the wrong direction. Going back. Okay, Part A. There they are. Tree growth tax law reimbursement funds the proposal in Part J to adjust the reimbursement formula. This is providing the funds necessary, which is why they should have been in parentheses over on the other part. Well, maybe no, it's not in parentheses because parentheses would be a revenue loss and it's an appropriation, so it actually shouldn't be in parentheses because this is an appropriation. 2.9 million in FY22 and 3.2 million in FY23 to fund the correction of the calculation provisions. The other provisions that have allocations in the in Part A relate to revenue sharings. Remember, with revenue sharing, there's the funny name disproportionate tax burden fund, which we call revenue sharing 2, which goes to municipalities with tax rates that exceed 10 mils. Under both of these instances, this is related to the fact that more money is going to be going to the local government fund. So what this is identifying is that there is additional money that would need to go to the disproportionate tax burden fund, the revenue sharing 2 fund, and the revenue sharing 1 fund, which is split between 2 pages here, but state municipal revenue sharing is revenue sharing 1, and this is the amount that would go to the local government fund in order to fund those transfers. If you take these numbers and you looked over at Part G, the numbers would not be the same on revenue sharing. That's because I believe anyway that the numbers that are in Part A are reflecting the fact that revenue sharing is also going to be affected by changes in the sales tax exemption for menstrual products and the income tax provisions, because to the extent that revenue is going down because of those changes, revenue sharing will also be going down a little bit because it's not going to be getting 4.5% of those in FY22 or 5% in FY23. That's all I've got.
Okay. Committee discussion, any questions? Representative Sachs.
Thank you, Madam Chair. And how would you prefer these questions be asked? I have 2 clarifying questions and then a topic for discussion for the committee.
I think clarifying questions first and then discussions. And then I think I think the best way to do this is after we have our questions answered and any discussions that we want to have, we can go through that list sort of one more time and do a little a poll of who is in favor of and who is not in favor of And I think Julie can send those numbers to AFA, just like we've done with the supplemental and with the budget. So Representative Sachs, hit it with your questions.
All right, shouldn't be much. The first one's on the, two of them are in the language. The clarifying questions are in the language part. So the first one was part F, the property tax relief fund. It sounded like it deleted previous part F and then just basically puts that $18 million allocation to the highway fund. And I just wondered if it was because that it all went to the highway fund, because where we had thought that it was going where it had been previously is because the capital construction improvement fund, budget stabilization and general fund, instead they did a part SSS for 87 million for the capital fund, and that we'd done budget stabilization with the back to basics fund, so that highway fund was the next highest use for that money. That was my question. Is that the reason why? You can tell, like, that hashtag of tax committee is my life apparently is true, because I kind of went through, which Julie is going to share that hashtag with me, apparently. So that was my first question. Is that the reason it went to the highway fund, because you had already funded those other initiatives with that leftover money? So that was my first question. I don't know if the department wants to answer these as we go.
I would need to defer to the folks from the administration to answer that question. I had the sense that they were not related. It's just that F became available, so they used it. But I'm not sure.
I wonder if, I thought I saw Anya here, but perhaps she had to step out, but maybe Dr. Allen, you might be able to answer that.
I think I'm going to take a stab at this because we weren't involved in the development of that portion of the budget proposal. But unlike the general fund, the highway fund in the May 1st revenue forecast was reduced annually going forward. And so I think there was a need to supplement highway fund revenues. And this was an opportunity to do it through that particular part. I think Representative Sachs is also correct in that the 87 million that's going towards state facility construction and so forth was part of that decision making as well.
Right. If anybody cares, it's part SSS of the so according to Commissioner's testimony. Thank you, Dr. Allen. And that makes perfect sense given the transportation emphasis of this particular budget. So that's great. My next question actually was a really geeky technical one on page 9 of the language document of Part J. And I say this with my municipal hat on. And again, this will be probably a department question. But in Part J, they took out the section that if municipalities will get this reimbursement, if they submit a completed annual return in accordance with Section 383. So that's what they're keeping in. But they took out and if it achieves minimum assessment ratio established in Section 327. At the very end of that section, they did not remove that Section 327 with the 10%. And I just, for municipalities, wanted to make sure that it's not an either or an and. Mr. Lacy.
Like Mr. Lacy jumped on right in time.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, so we removed it above because it was below.
Okay, so it's
that was
just
the idea.
So that you have to do it in accordance, but also if you don't do that, you still will have that 10% loss.
Correct. So Section 383 requires them to file the return, and then Section 327 has to do with assessing standards that they have to meet. And if they don't meet those standards, their reimbursement gets knocked down a little bit. So it was only removed above because it was kind of duplicative at that point, since it was already below. So
it's still an and. It's
correct.
Still an and.
Yes.
Yep. Okay. Great. Thank you for that. I really do read what you give us, Mr. Lacy, I promise.
I appreciate that.
It's all good. And then, Madam Chair, my last point, which I think everybody knows the drum that I beat often, is I would love to see this committee recommend 5% revenue sharing for 22 as well as 23. But I will just leave that there. Thank you, Madam Chair.
I'm gonna guess you're gonna vote no on that part of the, on that part of this then.
Well, just for the recommendation.
Yeah. Any other
Thank you, Madam
questions,
Chair.
comments, committee discussions? All right, seeing none. Julie, I think our next step then would be to repeat going through that line by line, maybe just a quick read, and we can all get our raised hand buttons ready for you to record what we're interested in keeping and what we're interested in not keeping in this. Does anyone need to see the chart again while we go through? Yeah, Representative Gramlich, you're nodding your head. Yeah, would you mind doing that, Julie? I'd actually tried to find it in our email and on the webpage, and I didn't see it either. I was paying attention to what you were scrolling through, but if you could put that on again, that'd be great.
I'm sorry.
No, that's totally okay.
And I know it's hard for you to count hands when this screen sharing is up.
That's okay. I have a trick that I can do to do that. As a matter of fact, Avery, if you wouldn't mind letting our friends at MRS jump back into the attendee room, I can see hands better. But just in case I can't hear anything, if there's a question that does come up while we're taking these votes, if you can just unmute yourself and let me know that you have a question, that would be great. All right, Julie, take it away.
Okay, well, the first things on the chart are the appropriation and allocation section. I'll refer to the numbers over there in the left-hand column. Number one, the tree growth tax law reimbursement, the recalculation that Mr. Lacy just answered questions about, and the need for additional money to reimburse the municipalities of 2.9 in FY22 and 3.2 million in FY23.
Gotcha. All those in favor of putting this in?
And I can't really see hands at this point, so if someone could identify numbers for me, it would be helpful.
Yep, absolutely.
Looks unanimous.
Yeah, Senator Libby and Representative Perry, if you can let me know. All right, yep, unanimous. Terrific.
Good.
So 11.
Yes.
11.
Yes.
Thank you.
Part 2.
I'm getting there. Okay, the next provision is the revenue sharing. And it increasing to 4.5% in FY20 and 5% in 23.
Including Rev 2.
And you Rev 1 and Rev 2, yes.
Yep, okay. All those in favor of putting this one in as is? That looks like a big
Sorry to have not been here earlier. You're saying putting it as is, and the other option is?
To continue with, I think the general theme of this committee is to really highly encourage the 5%.
Okay.
Leave it at 5%.
5%, yeah.
Okay.
So, Representative Perry, are you okay with putting this in as is?
Well, that was going to be my, I was going to vote for it as is. I mean, we have a bill sitting on the table with unanimous support from the House and nearly unanimous support for the Senate for 5%. If we want to augment that message by making a recommendation for 5 here, I guess I'd go along with that as well. Whatever the motion is, I guess I'll support.
Yeah, I think that's probably what we're going to do. I would propose that we do so. We put it in as 5%.
Right. Yes.
Want to do a little hand raising on that?
5%. Yes.
Yep. Senator Pouliot?
Yo.
Yeah, gotcha. Okay, so that's unanimous in not putting that in as is, Julie, but putting that in as our consistently recommended 5%.
Okay.
All right. Part 3? Or was part 2 also part 3 with Rev 2?
Oh, yes.
Is that?
So what comes next is the language parts, and part F would be first, the provision that takes out the repeal of the property tax relief fund.
Takes out and replaces it with the highway fund.
Yes, yes.
Okay. All those in favor of that provision? Senator Pouliot? Yep, great, unanimous, that can go in.
Okay. Part H, you probably want to consider these separately. The first one, well, again, it takes out the service provider tax expansion and replaces it with the first thing is income tax conformity as of April 30th of 2021 to incorporate the federal changes made this year.
Everybody good with that? Can I get a hand raise? Representative Matlack? Yep, okay. All right, that's unanimous.
And the second part is the sales tax exemption for menstrual products beginning October 1st, 21.
Okay.
Could I ask a quick question on that?
Yeah, absolutely.
We tabled the bill. Is it because we knew this was coming? I can't remember why we tabled it.
I believe so, which means we can probably let the bill go when it comes to us in the next couple of days. But yeah, I think that's what it was, Ted.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
I think there was also an issue with where Maine Revenue Service was going to come up with an offset.
Yeah, I was wondering if it was that whole entire package. Yeah.
Yes,
it was. Okay. So yes. We'll hear that on Thursday. And Ted, I think that actually goes a little bit deeper than just exempting products. I think it asks.
Oh, yeah, it was diapers and something else.
Right. Yeah.
Okay, I remember now. Thank you.
So all those in favor of the exemption for menstrual products? That is unanimous. All right. Julie, temporary EITC expansion.
yes, that is the next one.
Okay. All those in favor? And that is also unanimous. Everybody's knowing where their hand raising button is today. That's awesome. And next, Julie, I think is the increase in the property tax fairness credit.
Yes.
Yep. Terrific. All those in favor? Great. That is unanimous.
The next provision is Part G. Again, this is revenue sharing. This is the language rather than the appropriations. They're the same issue as under Part A, allocations.
All those in favor?
Are we going to change it to 5% there?
Yeah. Oh, the language. Yeah, you're right, Ted. Thank you. Sorry. So Julie, we're fine with the language change as long as it reads 5% increase now.
In 22, yeah.
Yeah. Representative Bickford, are you in favor of that? Yeah. I can't see your hand. I'm sorry.
Yes, I am.
Cool. Representative Gramlich, language works for you? Yeah. All right, that's unanimous then as well. Unanimous to change that is.
Part J is the language with regard to the tree growth tax reimbursement.
Everybody cool with the language on that? Great, unanimous. Senator Libby, do you have a question, or do you are you still voting? Okay. It's quick. Julie, I think the next one is the tax examiner 1 and 2 positions.
Yes, promotion adjustments.
Gotcha, everybody on board with that? So, great, unanimous on that. All right, Julie, what's next?
Well, I think you finished your work on the budget.
Wow, amazing.
Yeah, don't exhale. I do have 9 amendment reviews for you.
All right, well, I blocked off an hour of my day. How's everybody else doing?
I
Representative
have a
Bickford?
question.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Part of what we were looking at was, it looked like we had a lot more information than what we've just voted on. I saw cigarette tax increases and other things, unless I was looking at something else.
In bonds.
Might have been something else. That's probably in the full package, but not in regards to our committee.
Oh, okay. So this is just tax stuff.
This is
Yeah.
specifically
Well,
taxation stuff.
But tobacco products and cigarettes are definitely tax items.
If I remember correctly, Representative Bickford, I think what I saw was the flavored tobacco. There was a flavored tobacco something, but it didn't have anything to do with the taxes. We do have a cigarette tax bill that we'll be doing work session on this week.
Right. Okay.
I don't think that in the governor's change package, I don't believe it had anything.
Oh,
to do with taxes.
okay.
Yeah.
All right, good. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. And Representative Kryzak?
Thank you, Madam Chair. So what that was showing was just the taxes under the current cigarette tax law. That was not talking about any of the new bills.
Correct.
Thank you.
Yep. And actually, I don't think it had anything to do with taxes at all. I think it had to do with pulling flavored tobaccos out of circulation in the state.
Oh, so they were showing the loss.
Yes, exactly.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Yeah. All right, Julie, let's head into amendment review.
Okay. And I revised my method of sharing these things because I've had so much trouble with them in the past that I put all 9 of them into one document and to share instead of sharing each one separately. So hopefully I won't lose them this time.
Awesome.
The first one is LD 136, which is an act to increase the maximum pension deduction for state income tax. This bill proposed to increase the pension deduction $5,000 a year until it reached $35,000 in the year 2026, and then to index it after that point. There was a divided report. The majority on this one was ought not to pass. The minority was ought to pass as amended. The amendment removes the provisions that would index the amount of the pension when it reaches $35,000 in 2026, and to add the fiscal note. So when you see amend the bill by striking out sections 2 to 4, that's taking out the indexing provisions. The fiscal note is a cost to the general fund of almost $11 million in FY22, 22.8 million in 23, and then going up to 35 in 24 and 49 in 25 because the amount of the pension increases each year.
Any concerns with that one?
That's it.
All set.
Okay. LD 708 is an act to increase the homestead exemption to $50,000. This was also a divided report. The bill proposed to increase the homestead exemption to $50,000 in April of 21. On this bill, there was a majority ought not to pass and a minority ought to pass as amended. The amendment provides that the reimbursement to municipalities for the exemption would go up to 85% for all exemptions, which would be considered to be an average amount to cover 100% of the new exemptions that are being enacted. So let's see down here, the provisions relating to reimbursement that require the amount that the municipality receives to be considered as if it were tax revenue that is being received for purposes of calculating education funding and the property tax rate. So you'll see that it's 85% in there. I mean, it currently says 70%. And this says beginning in 21, when the reimbursement goes up to 85%, that 85% would be considered. And this increase is the actual increase in the reimbursement. Appropriations for purposes of reimbursement are 102 million in FY22 and 136 million in FY23.
Okay.
And the fiscal notes reflecting that.
Any questions on that? All right.
LD 846 is an act to promote benefit corporations. The original bill was a concept draft, and it was voted unanimously ought to pass as amended to turn it into a resolve directing the Department of the Secretary of State and DECD to engage in activities to provide information on their websites about the existence and the benefits of public benefit corporations, and information to go for how to go about finding out more information about them. The preamble results have preambles, and it directs the Department of Secretary of State to put on their website a description of what the benefit corporation is, because it's the Secretary of State's office that certifies these things as benefit corporations. They meet the qualifications, and a frequently asked questions section on their website, and a link to at least one nonprofit entity that assists persons in seeking to establish a benefit corporation. DECD would also be required to provide information, a link to information, a link to the Secretary of State's website, and require other organizations that provide business development resources to businesses to include information about benefit corporations in their materials. This was language that was submitted by the sponsor, I believe, by the way.
I think it was by the sponsor and the Secretary of State. The two of them came up with it together.
Okay.
And I believe they also got feedback from DECD, so they should be there should be no questions going forward for them.
Yeah. Fiscal note indicates that the additional cost to the Secretary of State and DECD can be absorbed within existing budgeted resources.
Great.
That's that one.
Okay. Any questions? All right, we're running through.
Okay. LD 1046, an act to create an income tax return checkoff for hunger prevention. This was a unanimous ought to pass as amended vote. This bill provides an income tax checkoff, a provision on the income tax form for people to check off and make donations of what would be their refund to for hunger prevention purposes. Maine Revenue Services asked for using standard language for the checkoff. The bill did not provide the standard language. So this first language here of providing options of checking out $5, $10, $25, and other is the standard that Maine Revenue Services uses. Well, the statutes provide it, but it's what's on the income tax forms for other checkoffs to list those amounts. That's the only change to the bill, other than to make appropriations for funding for the costs of creating and administering an income tax checkoff for hunger prevention. That's an appropriation to Maine Revenue Services for that purpose. A $500 allocation of $500 to what's the newly created Emergency Food Assistance Program Fund, which would be the fund from which the money would be dispensed to provide assistance to hunger organizations. And the general, where we don't know how much money will be checked off, donated through this mechanism, we generally do an allocation of $500. It's sort of a generic, we think there'll be some money, we'll say $500. If there's more money, they can actually spend the more money if they need to, where it's an allocation. That is what that is there for, to permit the fund to spend the money.
Can you go back up to that just a little bit?
Yep.
Looks like it's adding 14,885 and 500 for the section totals, bringing the total to 15,355. Is that right?
That's because it's adding the 14,855 appropriation to Maine Revenue Services for administrative purposes. So that the 15,000 is the total of everything that's in here. The 500 plus the 14,855.
Great. Any questions on that? All right. Next.
Still fiscal law. LD 1184 is an act to exempt from taxation certain out-of-state pensions. This bill was a divided report. The majority was ought not to pass. The ought to pass as amended was a minority report, and the amendment was fiscal note only. This is, scroll down so you can see it. It doesn't look like a fiscal note only, does it? That's because the bill provided for the enactment of a paragraph UU, which at the time the bill was drafted would have been the next paragraph in section 5122 subsection 2. However, since the bill was drafted, 2 new paragraphs had been created. So it needs to be XX. So it couldn't be fiscal note only. There's no change to the language. The language is exactly the same as in the bill. The only change is the designation is XX instead of UU.
Great.
And the fiscal note requires an appropriation to Maine Revenue Services of $11,000 for one-time computer programming, and indicates that there would be estimated to be a revenue impact of a loss of about $404,000 in FY22, and pretty much carrying through, although apparently going down a little bit in the next biennium for some reason, not much.
Okay, any questions? Okay, great.
Okay. Isn't this fun?
So fun. So fun.
We'll probably have a lot more of these types of days. In fact, we may need to talk about where you're not going to be meeting much after the next couple of days in order to actually have the reviews going into our post-session procedure, which is I send them out and members have 24 hours to respond to me or the chairs, in which case they'll get held. But otherwise, if no one has a problem within 24 hours, they get reported out. We're not there yet, but we may be soon. You'll get notice. LD 1227 is an act to provide equity in the state income tax deduction for certain public employees' retirement system pensions. This is the bill that specifically provided for essentially a 100% deduction for civil service pensions, main PERS pensions, and similar provisions that might be from other states. This was a divided report. I think the majority was ought to pass as amended, fiscal note only, the minority being ought not to pass. This attaches the fiscal note on this one. Revenue loss of 7.1 million in FY22, 13 in FY23, going up to 24 in and 20 million in 24 and 25 million in 25.
Is that a indication of the amount of people retiring over the next 3 years?
Well, when I looked at those amounts, I wondered if there was an increase in the pension deduction, but that I didn't catch in my summary. Let me pull out the bill quickly here. Yes, I'm sorry, I didn't catch it in my summary. It does go up by $5,000 a year, so it would increase to 15,000 in 21, 20,000 in 22, 25,000 in 23, 30,000 in 24, and then be indexed for inflation.
Gotcha. Not a massive walkout of many people. Okay, good. That's a plus. Okay, any questions on that one? All right. Getting towards the end.
LD 1413, you'll see a pension trend here, is an act to provide equity in the state income tax deduction for certain public employees' retirement system pensions. Again, this was a divided report. The majority report was ought not to pass. The minority report was ought to pass as amended, fiscal note only. Let's mention what this bill did. Oh, LD 1413 here quickly. Well, it's similar to the previous one as well. In fact, this may be the one that they were kind of duplicates. It again is an increase, 15,000 in 21, 20,000 in 22, 23. In 23, it's 25,000. In 24, it's 30,000, and then it's indexed. And you should say it's the same amounts for the fiscal note as the previous bill.
Is this is one of these is Representative Dodge and one is Senator Rafferty? Is that right?
Yeah, this one's Senator Rafferty's. I think the report was 12-1. And the other one was Representative Dodge's.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry to give you the extra work.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay.
Representative Sachs is correct.
Great.
As usual.
Any questions? All right.
Representative Sachs is working on 2 computers right now, so she can keep Ms. Jones.
I think when I retire that I'm going to suggest that they hire Representative Sachs to replace me.
I thought you liked me, Ms. Jones. That's not okay. Love you too.
It's your life. Okay, the next one is LD 1448. An act to increase state reimbursement to municipalities for revenue loss due to the homestead property tax exemption. I should have put down the sponsors' names on these. I think this is Representative Talbot Ross's bill. Anyway, the original bill proposed to increase reimbursement to 100% for homestead exemptions and did not make any change in the amount. The committee voted ought to pass as amended, to, in fact, change the amount of the homestead exemption from the current 30,000 to, from the current 20,000 to 30,000, and to not make any changes in the current 70% reimbursement figure. So this bill sort of does something different than the original one did relating to the homestead property tax exemption. Therefore, it gets a new title. So instead of referring to reimbursement, it's now an act to increase the homestead property tax exemption. Increases it to 30,000 beginning April 1st, 2022. Fiscal impact is in FY23, 14.5 million, going up to 19 in FY24 and 20 in FY25.
Okay, any questions? Representative Sachs?
Thank you. Julie, do you mind scrolling back up for a minute just to see the language, to see where it went, not to the fiscal note, but the actual text? So I see the summary, but where does it say in the additional exemption? So is it that 10,000 and then the 20,000?
Yes.
So the two together would be the 30?
Yes.
Okay.
There, I mentioned before once, and Representative Sachs is remembering, that there are actually two provisions under the homestead exemption. There's subsection 1, which provides an exemption for $10,000. That was when it was originally enacted. There's then section 1B, which says additional exemption, which gets added to the 10. So currently we have $15,000 is added to the 10 to give us our current $25,000 as of April 1st, 2020. And this would change it to, would increase it, the additional amount to $20,000 for property tax years beginning in April 1st, 2022. The reason it was done that way, which is a little strange, is that when they originally enacted an additional amount above the first 10 was reimbursed at 50%. And when they increased the amount, they wanted, that legislature wanted to increase more for the new amount. So it left the old amount at 50%, and the new amount was, I don't remember if it was 100 or whether it was something less than that now, but it was a different percentage. And in order to refer to which percentage applies to which amount, that's how it was chosen to do it. So even though they are all, the total amount is reimbursed at 70% now, we still have the two sections, the original 10 and the additional amount.
Okay, any other questions? Next up.
Next up is LD 1482, which is an act to improve access to property tax exemptions for new homeowners. This is the one that would take away the 12-month requirement that you have to have owned a homestead for 12 months before April 1st in order to be eligible for a first homestead exemption. This takes out those sections by striking all of sections 3 to 7. It,
I think we took out the.
yes, it also would have increased the exemption, the reimbursement on just that amount, the 12-month change amount by 100%. You voted to take that out and to leave the reimbursement at 70% for the new as well as the old.
Any questions on that one? Seeing none, that looks like really close to the end of your scroll list.
Oh, I didn't mention the amount. I didn't get that far in my scrolling. Cost to the general fund of 1.4 million in FY23 and about 2 million in FY24.
All right. Any questions, comments, concerns?
That was number 9.
All right, terrific. So as Julie mentioned, once we are finished with our work this week, all of the amendments that we'll come up with over the course of this week, maybe not all, but some anyway, will happen when we are no longer meeting as a committee. So at that time, Julie will send everybody amendment reviews for you to read through on your own. She's always there to answer questions about any of them. So if you have any questions, please ask. Otherwise, within 24 hours, right, Julie?
That's what we said in the past.
Yeah, they get released and put onto the calendar eventually. All righty. Anybody have any questions, thoughts, announcements? All right, thank you everybody for meeting on a Monday and getting as many people here as we did. I really appreciate that. Julie, if you have any questions of us about sending the letter to AFA, please don't hesitate to scream. And
Mo, I missed tomorrow. What's tomorrow's schedule?
tomorrow and Wednesday are full work session days. I mean, you know, as we'll run
Okay.
through as quickly as we can. And then on
No public hearings tomorrow?
No, we're done with public hearings.
All right.
On Thursday, though, we will be going over all of the bills that we had tabled over the
Okay.
course of the session and decide whether or not to put them in or out or to carry them over. And we'll decide that as a team so we can make sure that we have the best possible chance of getting all of those to carry over that we would
Okay.
like.
Thank you.
You got it. All right. We'll see you all tomorrow.
What time is
Sorry.
tax meeting on Wednesday?
On Wednesday, 9:30, I believe, right, Julie? Yep.
Yes.
9:30.
9 tomorrow, 9:30 on Wednesday, and 9 on Thursday.
Okay, thank you.
You got it. All right, we'll see you all tomorrow morning.
Town.
So much.
Have a good evening.
Good night, everyone.